Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to the ongoing saga. Ongoing meaning eternal saga. Ever, ever, and ever. One of your streams is having connection issues. All right. Seems to be fine. The eternal, everlasting, past, present, and evermore into the future. Bhagavad Gita. The very foundation of spiritual life. Spiritual life begins when we study, discuss, and realize the ABCs of spiritual life as they're given by Krishna and Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Continuing with the introduction. Thank you for joining us. And as usual, we'll hear our beloved ISKCON founder Acharya, Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, chanting the Mangalacharana. Please chant along or listen.
The author of Srimad Bhagavatam, Easy Journey to Other Planets, editor of Back to Godhead, etc.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatadistarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam Kroti Vachalam, Pangam Langayati Girim, Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. By the mercy of the spiritual master, a lame man can cross over mountains, and a dumb man can compose eloquent poetry. So welcome again. Please enter your name and where you are, and any questions or topics or doubts or realizations that you'd like to share right here. Hare Krishna. Continuing the Bhagavad Gita introduction. Actually, I just wanted to read. We're hearing Prabhupada chant the Mangalacharana, and we may be chanting ourselves every day. I'm going to read, each week I'll read one translation of one or two verses. Atmananda Das BG is, I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada, who has established within the material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Question. So, continuing in the introduction, today we'll read a little bit and discuss as usual. And as I've always requested and continue to request, also today, please share something, thoughts, doubts, questions. Prabhupada has given us Bhagavad Gita. He's given us all his teachings and books in order to change our lives. They're not just armchair philosophy. Unless the words, each single word of Srila Prabhupada is something that we can bring into our lives here and now, then I know for myself I'm not really getting even a small bit of what Prabhupada is offering. So with that results-orientated approach, let's listen and chant, because chanting isn't just repeating or glorifying or saying verses. Chanting is to respond according to my level of realization to what I'm hearing. So if I don't understand anything that I'm hearing or reading, then I have a question. Or if there's anything I don't understand in what I'm reading or hearing, then I ask a question. Either I didn't understand the English or the grammar, the syntax, or I didn't understand what it means. We've just been reading in this third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma's prayers for creative energy. And we read one verse, how describing Krishna, the pure devotees, they smell the aroma of Krishna's lotus feet through the sounds of Vedic mantras coming from the bona fide spiritual masters. So how is it that they're smelling by hearing sound? So we went into that a bit. So immediately we had a question. How is that possible? I hear we have the school here at our house now. I'm in Auckland for a few days. Wonderfully so. Surprise. Came down for Bhakti Mark's birthday last Friday. Complete surprise. She was in shock. Thank you, Jai Shila. And Jai Shila Prabhu was also there with Vimala and a few other wonderful devotees. And I'm hearing the children out because our house has now become a homeschool. It's wonderful hearing the children. So I'm hearing children outside playing before school starts. And I'm not smelling anything. I'm not tasting anything. So not only the pure devotees, they, with the development of their spiritual bodies, they're able to do what Krishna can do with his body always, which is to experience with any one sense all the experiences available to all the other senses, which are limited. I can't hear with my tongue. I can't taste with my ear. But in the pure state, when one has developed one's spiritual body, the senses are fully capable of smelling with the ears. So we came down to that realization, at least as one aspect of how it is. The pure devotees are smelling the aroma of Krishna's lotus feet through sound. So that sound is not limited. So that's another aspect of how we hear. There's no limitation to what we can understand and realize by hearing the sound. Therefore, as we're going to hear today, if we depend on our own ability to understand, it's very limited. It's called the ascending process. We try to understand by our own limited intelligence, mind, faculties, ability to analyze. Big mistake. It's so limiting. But if we open ourselves, if we surrender in our mood that what I'm hearing from Srila Prabhupada has within it the full spiritual experience, including smelling the aroma of Krishna's feet, or the tulsi leaves, or the carnations, marigolds we offered to the deities this morning for our Mangalarti program. And by the way, we're having a Mangalarti program in person wherever we are, but also virtually. So wherever you are, you can join us at 5:30 for basic Mangalarti, Kirtan, going to Shingadev prayers, reduced Tulsi, condensed Tulsi prayers, and a little bit of Srimad Bhagavatam. Everyone can join. So if you'd like to do that, please let me know. You can text me or phone me or email me or ask Arjun for my email address or whatever. I'm also on WhatsApp, which is a new thing for me. Hare Krishna. So, Jai Srila Prabhu finished on, so in this version of Bhagavad Gita, it's the bottom of page 13. So Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes. And Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. I'm going to reduce this because I don't know if I'll see any comments or questions if I don't. Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all knowledge. So here we're beginning. Next paragraph on page 14 of this version. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down, as is stated in Bhagavad Gita, by the parampara disciplic succession. That's how we receive it, coming down. We have to receive knowledge from the proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Lord Himself, and handed down to a succession of spiritual masters. Arjuna, the student who took lessons from Lord Sri Krishna, accepts everything that he says without contradicting him. He doesn't argue. In the beginning, he was arguing, but ultimately he gave that up. One is not allowed to accept one portion of Bhagavad Gita and not another. No, we must accept Bhagavad Gita without interpretation, without deletion, and without our own whimsical participation of Vedic knowledge. Our own whimsical participation in the matter. The Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by the Lord Himself. The words spoken by the Lord are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with 4 defects. A mundaner. So what are the 4 defects? A mundaner is sure to commit mistakes. A mundaner is invariably illusioned. A mundaner has the tendency to cheat others. And 4, a mundaner is limited by imperfect senses. With these 4 imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all-pervading knowledge. So what are they again? Makes mistakes. We make mistakes. We tend to be an illusion. We have imperfect senses. And we have a tendency to cheat others. So, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So far, what does it mean our research work is imperfect? I mean, how do we apply that? If Prabhupada has given us practical philosophy to use in our lives here and now, how do we apply that? So you might ask, how much faith do I have in my own ability to reason, to figure things out, to think, to analyze, and to understand? How much faith do I have in my own ability to do any of those? My experience is I have a lot of faith in being able to think clearly, reason logically, analyze things, and come up with the right answer, and to understand what is going on around me or what others say or speak. Think about it. And conversely, how much faith do I have in hearing from authority, bona fide spiritual master? How much faith do I have that by reading Srila Prabhupada's books and discussing them with like-minded devotees, that I will understand everything? Now, yes, okay, we say yes, I have faith in that. But then look at how much I have faith. And in the world today, right now, there's so many different arguments about the social, geopolitical situation in the world. So many arguments. Some on one side, so-called, and some on the other. Different arguments about COVID, the existence of it, the veracity of it, the reality of it, the effects of it, the danger of it. Arguments about freedom, about pro-vax, anti-vax, pro-choice, accepting government direction or not, mandates, etc., etc., etc. And so many arguments, so much. And everyone's thinking, oh, I understand. I see it as it is. I know what they're saying, and I know what they're saying. And they're wrong, and I'm right. Or I'm on the side that's right. How many of us find us in that mentality? Most of us find ourselves taking sides in that regard. Why? Because we think that I've figured out and I've taken a stance according to what I've understood. So in that regard, we have a lot of faith. And sometimes complete faith. Not only that I've reasoned it, I've analyzed it, and I'm understanding it. And because I have such a great ability, maybe I don't think like that, but our actions and our behavior and our speech may belie that, because I'm clear that I'm right and they're wrong, or the people that I'm siding with, the side that I'm on is right and the other side is wrong. That's pretty strong faith in my own thinking ability, my own limited, crazy mind's ability, and my so-called intelligence, my limited, faulty intelligence. I make mistakes. I have imperfect senses. I make mistakes. So maybe I'm making some mistakes in my conclusions. If we admit, yes, I have 4 defects. I'm conditioned. I'm fallen. I'm so far from purity and deep, deep advanced level realization. If we admit that, which is our actual position, at least I can speak for myself, then I have to admit I make mistakes. So how can I be so faithful, sure, convinced that I'm right? I tend to be an illusion. I tend to accept things that are not reality. I tend to accept my body as myself, which is complete illusion. I have imperfect senses. What can I perceive? What is the level of my research? Prabhupada says our research work is imperfect because we're researching things with imperfect senses. We do our research, and yeah, the anti-vax or the challenge to the effects or the danger of COVID. I've done my research, but my senses are imperfect, so my researching is also imperfect. There may be some relative value, okay, but that as soon as we enter into that onto that slippery slope, then we can justify, oh yes, I'm right, and I have a propensity to cheat others. Why? Because we're selfishly motivated, and I want something. I want to be right. Great, powerful. motivating force. Being right in real society, in civilized society like Vedic society, if someone defeated my philosophy or my logic, I would accept not only what they say, but I would accept them as a greater authority than I am. So that gives us a little bit of sense, a little sense of what real understanding and acceptance of the descending process. So I'm right, they're wrong, and we fight. One senior devotee said years ago, neophytes fight. Beginners, kanistas, those who are affected even devotees who are affected materially on the beginning, very beginning, lower stages on the ladder of the progression of bhakti, from shraddha to prem, from faith to love of Krishna. They make all these distinctions, material distinctions. They're right. They see others as wrong. I should say we think we're right. I think I'm right, and I make others wrong. So are we cheating? That's cheating. To conclude that I'm right and everyone else and they're wrong, that's cheating. And yet I'm convinced that, I've been studying Srila Prabhupada's books for 30, 40, 50 years. I understand what Prabhupada wants and what he says and what he would say if he was here. And I'm going to tell you. Are you so sure? So maybe you are very sure. And yet, if I consider that I'm faulty, I make mistakes. I have a tendency to be an illusion. I have imperfect senses, and I have a propensity to cheat. Am I cheating? So ultimately, what does cheating mean? Cheating means that I'm not giving myself and others Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada's teachings. Therefore, it's recommended that when we discuss spiritual matters, we always quote from Srila Prabhupada. And what I'm coming to in this discussion is that the result of our, whether it's cheating or not, of our fighting is that we have already been influenced and maybe overwhelmed by Kali. What does Kali do? Kali influences us to quarrel and to cheat. Hypocrisy means cheating. I say something and I do something else. So by our fighting, we give up the real service of pleasing Srila Prabhupada. We displease Srila Prabhupada by quarreling amongst ourselves. And when we displease Srila Prabhupada, we lose Krishna's mercy. And when we lose Krishna's mercy, what else is there? There's Maya. There's illusion. And the preaching, the Sankirtan, my own Krishna consciousness goes to hell. We spend all our time and energy arguing with each other and even damning one another and threatening one another. This is not pleasing to Prabhupada. In fact, it's for me, the Prabhupada's instruction to cooperate, to maintain and expand this Sankirtan movement, when he's not after his physical departure, is the way to please him. For me, after basic sadhana, following regular principle, at least for those who are initiated, those who are fully committed, following 4 regular principles and chanting at least 16 rounds a day, according to your level, where you're at, basic minimum that you choose and stick to. Beyond that, and studying, always engage, is to cooperate together. Prabhupada gave the example. Many sticks together won't be broken, but take one stick, it can be broken very easily. So unless we're working together cooperatively, and how do we cooperate? First of all, we understand what Bhagavad Gita is saying. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. So we research pro-vax, anti-vax, mandates, non-mandates, freedom. What is the value of our research? Not that we shouldn't research, but we should always back it up with the words, the mood, the desire, the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. He's our founder Acharya. And we may have so many wonderful, even pure devotees around us. It doesn't mean Prabhupada is not our founder Acharya. We study his books, we directly connect with him and with his murti. We're not engaging in idol worship when we worship Srila Prabhupada in his murti form. So he's present there, and especially in his words. So when we understand by accepting our own limited, imperfect, cheating propensity position, then we can actually understand. We can without that, accepting where we're really at, that we're conditioned, particularly with all these defects, that we don't need to research. Does that mean I don't use my intelligence to try to understand the words coming down through parampara? No. But we don't need to judge it. We need to analyze it and discuss it together. Still, for me, even beyond that is how we cooperate together. So how do we cooperate? If we argue and fight and bicker and quarrel and show how the other one or the other group is wrong, if I do that, there's no question of cooperation. It's already us and them. It's already us and them. I'm right, they're wrong. They're wrong, we're right. There's no question of, it's called adversarial. There's no question of common denominator. Even though Prabhupada has given us common denominator. He says, when there's disagreements, you sit down together and you chant Hare Krishna. And you discuss Ishtagos. Prabhupada established Ishtagostis to discuss the instructions of the spiritual master. Discuss together. And that's, we develop detachment from being right, from giving up. We can give up that arrogance by discussing. And what does discussing mean? Discussing means two-way. Listening, and then, as I said, sharing my understanding, according to my realization. That's called what I call applied Shravanam Kirtanam. Applied Shravanam. We first thing we hear from another person without prejudice. We suspend. How can we hear? We can only hear if we suspend my beliefs, my opinions, my conclusions. Otherwise, while the other person is speaking, I'm not actually listening. I'm listening to what I'm going to tell them when they shut their mouths. Because I know better. My research ability is so deep and profound. My realizations are so effective and real that I'm just waiting to tell them, and I'm not listening. So if we're going to actually apply Shravanam Kirtan in our practical daily lives, then this is the place, this is a very effective place to do it, a most effective, because by doing that, we can give up, we can actually learn to cooperate together. Otherwise, cooperation remains simply a nice idea. One day, someday, we'll all cooperate. Yeah, okay, they're conservatives and they're liberals and they're middle of the roaders. Does that mean conservatives are the enemies of the liberals? And the liberals are the enemies, or the liberals are the enemies of the conservatives? And the middle roaders are okay with everyone? No. Everyone has their own opinion. And yet, unless and until we conjointly understand and apply the common understanding of what Prabhupada wants, so that requires a very high level of faith. Shraddha, the first quality, the first level. If I actually have faith in Srila Prabhupada and his instructions, and Lord Chaitanya's prediction that the holy names will be spread, then I will do whatever I have to do to learn how to cooperate. And it's not going to be by bashing someone over the head, trying to force them to agree with me. Who am I? I'm a faulty, illusioned, imperfect, limited, and propensity to cheating, person with a propensity to cheat others. That's what I really am in this world, not my spiritual self. If I pretend to be beyond those defects, then I'm in big trouble. There's no way I can go very deeply if I avoid the reality of my present conditioning and thus don't learn through anartha nivriti to give it up. Those anarthas remain. There's no way I can become steady, with a speaker, become attracted, really attracted to Krishna, steadily attracted and satisfied. One devotee asked Prabhupada, how will we know if we're serving Krishna or ourselves? How will we know? I may be doing so much service, and I may be doing it for some glorification or some subtle honor, profit, adoration, distinction. Oh, I'm such a good speaker. I'm such a good devotee. I'm so advanced. I'm so renounced. You can honor me. You can glorify me. I'm worthy. You can wash my feet. You can sing my glories. How do we know if I'm acting on that basis, even subtly, instead of doing the service that I'm doing for Krishna? I may be distributing books and being so attached to the glorification I get for being the best or one of the best book distributors. I'm better than everyone else. And now it's being acknowledged that I am better. Book distribution or whatever it is, I can dress the deities better than anyone else. I can cook the most wonderful sabji or halva. Now, doing those things for Krishna, it's so glorious. And in our conditioned state, we may be thinking like that. That's okay. We don't just become pure overnight. Still, if I maintain that attitude that I am so better, instead of standing back and say, hey, this is my false ego, this is my mundane attachment, this is my desire to stay in a material conscious and be glorified, to make myself feel better. If I stay in that consciousness without changing it and without getting some perspective on it, this is my conditioned self, then where's the question of actually becoming pure? Prabhupada has given us this philosophy, starting with the ABCs, starting with the A of the ABCs, that I'm not this body or mind, for practical purposes, to become a different person, to give up those unwanted anarthas, the pride, the attachment, the desire for profit, adoration, trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina madadena, kirtanyak sarahari. One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to all others, without expecting any in return. That's the mood in which we want to develop. We should string that verse on a thread and wear it around our neck like a garland. So in order to suspend that and trust that Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. It's perfect, it's infallible, it's complete. Not just in words, but it is my access, it is my connection, it is my life. Unless I'm realizing that and appreciating that and gradually accepting that as reality more and more in my life, then I will go on arguing. I certainly will not be able to listen to anyone with an open, detached, respectful mood. So that ability to listen to someone else, this person may be saying something completely opposite, completely contradictory to what I believe. If someone is doing that, can you suspend your own belief? Not give it up. Your own conviction, your own realization, your own opinion, on what you may or I may think is Prabhupada's words. Can I suspend that for the sake of the higher principle of cooperating with Srila Prabhupada to spread the Sankirtan movement? Because Prabhupada said, if we don't cooperate, his work is spoiled. If Prabhupada's work is spoiled, we're finished. What to speak of displeasing Prabhupada? We have no access if Prabhupada's work is finished. And if we have anything to do with perpetuating arguments about what to do here and now, whether it's how we relate with the government, how we relate with the other, how we relate with the pro-vaxxers or anti-vaxxers or the pro-choice or the mandates, how we relate to any of those things, people or situations or conditions. Unless I have freedom and power in dealing with all those things in a way that helps me maintain and expand Srila Prabhupada's and Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission, I'm lost. I have no access. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasad. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the mercy of Krishna, the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, no one can make any spiritual advancement. We sing it every day. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. Yasya prasada nagati kutopi. Without the grace of the spiritual master, no one can make any spiritual advancement. If we don't have Prabhupada's pleasure, if we don't satisfy, not just if we don't satisfy him, please him, we're lost. We have nothing. Without Prabhupada, we have nothing. Prabhupada has given us everything. He gives us everything every day. Every time we open one of his books, every time we remember or repeat his exact instructions, hear his lectures, and discuss accordingly. We discuss what we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada and how to apply it. That is transcendental kirtanam. Otherwise, we're lost. Our destination is unknown. Nagati kutopi. Our destination is unknown. So it takes very significant faith to be able to trust that by this applied Shravanam Kirtanam, by actually suspending my beliefs, my opinions, my convictions, my arguments, and hearing, listening, whether I agree or not, with another like-minded devotee or spiritually inclined person, Krishna being pleased by that practice, by that application of Shravanam Kirtanam, applied hearing and chanting, hearing and discussing, he will give us the understanding by which they can come to me, he says in Bhagavad Gita. I give them the understanding by which they can come to me, by applying the principles given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So I don't have to figure it all out. The only thing I really have to do is learn how to listen and stop fighting. Ultimately, we should not be taking sides, except the side that is learning how to cooperate to spread the Sankirtan movement. At least maintain it and spread it. So I've made a lot of points here. So for me, I may have what I think is so many truths, what I think is true about COVID, about mandates, about government, about pro-vax, about anti-vax, about pro-choice, my truth about how I should act in this present reality. Ultimately, I think personally, my understanding is, limited as it is, that if I please Srila Prabhupada, that means I have one truth. Ultimately, there's only one truth, is that I learn to cooperate and help others to cooperate to maintain and expand his Hare Krishna movement, now and in the future, with others. So how do I develop that faith? By practicing. Consider what I need to do, what you need to do, what would help you to be able to apply the principle, whatever you need. Hopefully what I've said is something valuable that you might use. Maybe not. But whatever will help you to apply the basic principles of and practices and processes, Shravana, hearing and chanting, with other people who also want to please Srila Prabhupada and expand and spread the Sankirtan mission, because then everyone is happy. As soon as we stop that, or we get deviated by fighting or being right, where's the Anandam Buddhivardhanam? Anandam Buddhivardhanam, Pratipadam Purnamritam Swadanam, Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction Glories to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together, and thus the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death, is extinguished. The Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. What's the nectar in being right? We think there's so much nectar there. I'm right, they're wrong, and I've proven I've defeated them, and they may not listen, they may not accept it or not. Prabhupada says speaking truth is speaking palatably so people will accept it. Yes, of course, calling a spade is valid. But Prabhupada says very clearly in Bhagavad Gita that unless one should maybe speak strongly to one's dependents, disciples, students, whatever, but one should not speak so to someone who's not their dependent or their student or their disciple or their follower or whatever. We should be able to speak the truth palatably so that people will accept it. So that's another thing. Not just listening, but speaking in response in a way that is not in the mood that you should listen to me because I know better than you. It's a foregone fact in my mind that you're wrong, I'm right. It's so powerful, such a powerful influence of Kali that draws us into the cheating, into the arguing, into the fighting, the bickering. And we know the example Prabhupada said, he gave that example of the father who was very ill, lying on his bed, and he had he had 6 or 8 children, and there were 3 or 4 on each side, and they were trying to massage him. But then when they came to a place somewhere near the middle, and they started, oh no, this is I'm massaging here, you stay over there, and then they start fighting, and they end up beating the father. Is that service? Is that supporting and pleasing, or to speak of maintaining the good, helping, improving the health of the father? No. It damages, it's wounding, it's weakening. Therefore, Prabhupada said, if you don't cooperate, my work is spoiled. He said, ISKCON is my body. So if we cooperate together to please Srila Prabhupada, that is, in one sense, that is ISKCON. So, as I said, I've made many points here. I hope some of it's helpful. I would like some comments or thoughts or questions or doubts or respectful challenges. See if I can listen to something that might be very different that you have concluded or think. Add channels. No, not gonna do that. Sorry, guys. So, again, please send your Haribols, your questions, your doubts, your appreciations, your realizations. And if you're not personally present live now, then put it in the chat wherever you are on the Krishna Katha Auckland Facebook or YouTube sites. Howard Lucas, I'm not sure if we met, but you're very welcome. What particular point or points did you think were valid, Howard? Or did you appreciate? Or did you doubt? Or would you like some more explanation or expansion on? I'll repeat the first line of this section of the purport again before we finish. Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we are researching things with imperfect senses. We've got the 4 defects I mentioned, which Prabhupada specifically mentions at the end of this particular paragraph on page 14 of the Bhagavad Gita introduction in this version. Howard says that there should not be conflict among devotees. Is that you appreciate that point? Yeah, if that's what you're saying, sounds like you're saying that is very important. I think the same, and it directly builds on Prabhupada saying it himself. Yes, because when we fight, then the mission is lost. The energy and the enthusiasm, the focus on being Krishna conscious and spreading Krishna consciousness is lost. Kali is winning. Kali has somehow invaded, actually I shouldn't say invaded our consciousness. For me, Kali is still there in my being, in my consciousness. If I'm realistic or honest, if I'm honest and humble, Kali is still there. It's not that Kali is invaded. Kali is still there. And if I'm progressing, then I will reduce, I will minimize, I will understand, I will accept that Kali is there, that I'm conditioned, that I make mistakes, that I have imperfect senses, that I tend to be an illusion, and I have a tendency to cheat. If I accept that that's my reality, then I work, I struggle to give that up, to transform, to use that logical, analytical, even argumentative tendency to as Lord Chaitanya says, or Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in the CC, if you're interested in logic and argument and philosophy, simply examine the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you will be astounded. So we apply Krishna says, one who studies Bhagavad Gita worships me by his intelligence. So we study and we discuss. And we notice how our Kali Yuga, the 4 defects, our tendencies to be influenced by that is there. We reduce it, we suspend it, and we allow ourselves to do something else. In this case, listen. Really listen to what Prabhupada is saying. Really listen to others who are interested in discussing and coming to mutual understanding so that we can cooperate. Unless we accept our fallen, defective position, the influence of Kali within ourselves, then without that humble honesty, it will be very hard. If I don't even admit, because some devotees, they say, "Oh, we're chanting Hare Krishna. We're liberated." In one sense, it's true, but another, liberation, there are different levels of liberation. And if I just think myself liberated, as the impersonalists do, then we're simply being impersonalists. We're sahajiyas, taking it all very cheaply. I've heard devotees say these things. We're transcendental. Spiritually, we are transcendental. But if we pretend to be on that transcendental level and we don't deal with the anarthas, the influence of Kali, illusion, the defects within myself, we're simply avoiding, we're bypassing the reality. It's called spiritual bypassing. Or living in the illusion of transcendence. Transcendence is reality. But if I pretend that I'm on that perfect level now, fully liberated, Krishna conscious, then I'm an illusion. It's another subtle aspect of illusion. Hare Krishna, Yogesh. Thank you for contributing. If you have any questions or comments, please share. I like Howard is your comment, Howard, is encouraging and inspiring that there should not be conflict amongst the devotees. So that's a big ask, and that's what I've been focusing on today. To ultimately have faith that if I do what Prabhupada wants me to do, what he's instructing, that if I accept my actual conditioned fallen state, every day we're chanting, we're praying to Tulsi Devi. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise may always swim, please Tulsi Devi, may always swim in the love of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. When we look at the greatest devotees, Prabhupada said, I am completely incapable, but Krishna, please fulfill the purport of Bhakti Vedanta and make me dance. Make me your instrument. Make me dance. Make me dance. Make me dance. All the great acharyas, they had this humility, extreme humility. When we hear about it, nothing to do with low self-esteem or self-loathing. Real humility, which is way beyond my ability even to understand what speaker be that. So thank you again, and I will continue if there's any questions or comments, but we've gone over time, and I want to keep it short and to the point. And the word before Prabhupada describes the defects, the 4 defects that we all have, Prabhupada says, the words spoken by the Lord are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world, which is infected with 4 defects. So if we find ourselves tending to fight or to argue, to be in conflict with other devotees who disagree with us, then consider, then find the words that Krishna or Prabhupada have spoken or written and bring those into your vocabulary when you're speaking. Now, if you're take as Stephen Covey says, between every stimulus, someone says something which I really am upset about, that it's, in my opinion, so wrong about mandates, about COVID, about freedom, whatever. Between the stimulus and my response to it, there is a space. So make that space, expand that space, and be in it, and breathe, whatever you have to do, and practice detachment from what that person has said or what I think should be said, or can say to prove that person wrong. Hang on, what would Prabhupada want me to do? He said, if there's disagreement, he always said, whatever disagreements or differences there are, and there are even differences on the transcendental platform, there's always unity and diversity. Diversity is a reality, especially here. Whatever differences there are, we should be respectful. We should be gentlemen, gentlewomen. None of this harsh language, especially on social media, it's going on. Terrible language sometimes, targeted at another devotee or aspiring Vaishnavi. Then we let our anger, our pride, our arrogance, all whatever it is, then we're under the control of that, and we think about the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, Bhashya Vega, Manasakroda Vega, Jiva Vega. So one who can tolerate the urges of anger, the tongue, the urge to speak, of the mind, or to speak of the belly, the genital, then we become qualified to speak. So take advantage of that space and expand it and focus, ground yourself. Notice how I'm about to react and argue and show this person, defeat this person. Notice that. And so, well, is that what I want to do? Would that be pleasing to Prabhupada? That's the bottom line. What is what I'm saying, or the mood that I'm saying it in, pleasing to Prabhupada? Very good practical way to determine what I say or don't say. Vacha Vega, Manasakroda Vega. First thing is control the urges of the tongue and the tendency to speak, and the mind. Vacha Vega. Vacha means words, and Vega means pushings. So the tongue and the mind and my pride, the false ego, are pushing me. So I don't have to accept that. And it takes strength. It takes realization. It takes practice. Arjuna says to Krishna, I think, Krishna, it is more difficult to control the mind than to control the raging wind. And Krishna says, yes, it's true. But it is possible. Right there in Bhagavad. And how are the ways that it's possible? Two things. Who can say? If you know it, please put it in the comments. Two things. Krishna says it is possible to control the raging mind, which is more difficult to control than the raging wind. Two things, by practice and by detachment. So we should become so steady and regular in our chanting and hearing without letting anything deviate us, and finding the association that will encourage us, support us, enliven us, enthuse us to be steady in that, in spite of all the doubts, the unsteadiness, depression, discouragement, whatever it is. Find that association and develop the relationships with those who do that with you and for you. And do whatever, probably mold your life in such a way, always remember Krishna and never forget him. Hare Krishna. Thank you again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Sadhu Sangha ki jai. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you for your participation and association.